Hi everyone, good afternoon, and thank you very much, Prof. Jason, for this lovely introduction. And I'm really very happy to see all of you here in this forum. And I really wish my talk can be very useful to all of you here. Okay, so let me first start with my personal experience as someone who, as a farmer, means I just came from a place where English is not a first language. And within 3 to 4 years, I'm able to write a paper that draw many attention. The moral of the story here, it is all about commitment and follow the guidelines. Uh, this workshop today may not be more focused on the commitment, rather more on how to follow the guideline in order to produce high impact research paper, especially review or survey paper. I have divided this presentation into two. The first part is a short presentation, which from my slide, it's about only 12 slides. Then the second part is on the template that I have created, and I hope this template can be useful for you. So remember, this is based on my personal experience. I believe some of you here are very experienced also in writing a journal paper. So you can take some of the tips that might help you, or you can follow these guidelines that is more effective to myself. And I have used it over the last 4 to 5 years on writing a survey or review paper. Okay, so let me first share the slides of the presentation. Okay, the title of the presentation is Producing High Impact Review Survey Paper. So I emphasize on this high impact because I believe many of us can write a review or survey paper, but to produce that quality paper that can be published in high impact journal is a bit crucial, and need some techniques and some effort that someone has to put. For those who are not very much familiar with these review survey terms, I would like to start with the definition of what is a review paper. The review paper is a critical, constructive analysis of the literature in a specific field. So regardless of what field you are in, you can write a review paper. And this review constructive analysis of the paper can be through summary, classification, analysis, and also comparison. The definition of survey is not that much different from a review paper. It is also summarizing and organizing your research work in a novel way, so that someone can understand the field better. So this definition is by SAM Computing Survey. But the differences between survey and review is more on the length of the work that you have to do. If you look at the review paper, normally it is very comprehensive, and it has many elements like comparisons, tables, and also critical analysis, discussions, and so forth. But the survey is somehow a bit shorter compared to review, and does not have that in-depth writing or work compared to review. So this is a short difference. Normally, people write a survey when they are writing about specific topics. So for those, I advise for the students, especially who are starting the program, either master or PhD, I suggest to start with a review paper rather than survey paper, so that you can get into the depth of that field or that area, and it gives you a broader perspective of what you need to do next and how you can also extract a research gap from it. So so for those who are doing research or they are on research, I believe review paper it's very useful. For the experienced lecturers who already have completed their PhD and they're just using this to write for their either KPI or to just accelerate their knowledge, they can write a survey, a survey paper. Okay, so the goal of this survey or review paper is, as I said, is to provide the reader with the view of the existing work. Means it's all about looking at the existing work. In computer science, normally we call it as a secondary data. Means we review the existing research work and then summarize it in a way that shows some sort of contribution. Now, not all details must be included. So we need to decide on which one we have to include and which one we should not include in our survey paper. The second thing also we need to consider is we have to make sure we cover all the relevant materials completely. The reason why we have to cover all materials, it is because your paper will go to an experienced reviewer who has covered also a lot of previous studies and knows that you haven't covered specific topics, and it could be the reason of rejection also. So please try to somehow use a way of extracting all the relevant materials that can help you to summarize it. The other thing also, logical structure of your organization of your paper, it's very important. You need to have a very a clear and precise and constructive way of organizing your paper, and focus on the state of the art view. So this is just some of the goal that you some of the points that you need to consider when you write a survey or review paper. Okay, so where do we begin? Because especially with the students, when we think of writing a journal paper, sometimes we get support from supervisor, but normally supervisor will give you guidelines, but will not tell you exactly what to do. That is your job to go and find out how to start, and you have to figure out the way of starting your review paper. I have a slide that help either masters or PhD students to really look at what to consider first. Normally we have a proposal, right? So this is not to just go out of the scope of your research work. You have the proposal, and in the proposal normally we have objective 1, objective 2, objective 3, or maybe objective 4. It depends on your proposal. So the first objective always about the literature. So we review some existing research work and find the gaps and all this. So this workshop is specifically focused on the first objective, which is the review or survey. Means how we turn the literature into a survey or review paper. Okay, so this is for the PhD students who wants to start writing a review or survey paper. This is please just confirm, is it clear, the slides? You can see the text. One of you can just confirm, please, if you can see the text on the box. Is it clear?
It's a bit small. If you could extend it a little bit.
Okay. So is it clear now?
still a little bit small. I wonder if you could collapse the left panel. You can minimize the left panel and then the main slide will become bigger. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
All right. So I divided into three parts. I call it before, means before we start writing a review paper, what are the things that we need to consider during writing of our paper, and after writing, after we complete the writing of the paper. So the first thing, when we start writing a review or survey paper, we need to decide on the topic. Selecting topic is the most important part of your review or survey paper. So please spend some time. And the best way for those who are in computer science, sometimes I look through some of the uh, white papers. These white papers always produced by industries, because I believe industries are somehow a bit ahead of us in terms of technology. So you can get some hints of what is the latest, what is the trend, and what is going on in the world. So you can form ideas from either white papers or technical reports produced by well-known reporters. And you can also find the recent papers published in either 2019 or 2020. So choosing the topic is very important. We'll get into the depth of this selecting topics in the template later. I will share my experience on this and how you can form a topics that is very attractive to the readers and also the editor. The second thing you need to also consider before you start writing is select the target journal. This is also very, very important, because when you select the target journal, you will save a lot of time instead of you go through trial and error. So select the target journal. It depends on the university policy. Either you have to go for Q1 or Q2 or Q3 or Scopus journal. So try to select your target journal. When you select the target journal, please go through the scope of the journal, because it also saves time. When you choose a journal, read the scope and see whether your title fit within the scope or not. The other thing also you can consider is the special issue. There are a lot of special issues in different journals. You go through the special issues and see if that special issue match your title. You already have chosen the title or the idea that you want to work on. You go through the special issue and see if it is aligned to the topic that you select. So sometimes if you have no idea what topic to select, but you have interest on writing a journal paper, this is especially for those who are already graduated, a PhD holder. You don't have to go and find, because you don't have objectives, proposals, all this. You go through the special issue and form a title from it, because normally special issue is the latest of what they want to publish. So you can go through the special issue, pick the topic, and then you start writing about it. The good thing about the special issue is it has a deadline. You know exactly when the deadline of that submission, and also when the first notification will come out. So please try to use these techniques instead of just randomly pick a topic and start writing it. Later you will go through a lot of difficulties of getting your paper published. It is very acceptable also to email editors. It's very fine. You can send email editors to editors, ask them whether your title is of interest of the journal or not. So they will inform you, they will tell you, they will reply, will tell you whether it is within the scope or not. So it is also fine, save some time. Then you need to download the journal papers. So this is based on the title. You have the keywords, you select the accurate keywords, and then you start downloading the papers. The way you download, to save time, please don't download papers only when you need it means you just go one and you download one, and then you, after a few days, you download the second, and all this. It distracts you from the overall idea that you need to convey, or the message that you want to convey. In one time, you spend like a few hours. You list down all the papers that you want to read within maybe a time frame. You download them. So there is an option, let's say in Web of Science, when you search by the keywords, it will list you all the papers and the PDF. So you can select all, you can filter the paper. Let's say you just want within maybe 2 years, the last 2 years, or 3 years, for example. You filter either by citation or by year, and then you select all and download. It will dump the whole PDF files and it will send you with the title. That's very useful, because you don't need to go back again and search and get the paper every time you want to search. You just get it one time, maybe 15 or 20 or 30 papers at once. You put it in your folder, and then you just go through it. It is very, very helpful, and it saves a lot of time. The same thing you can do with IEEE ACM. All they have this option of dumping the entire PDF files and save it in your desktop. Okay, once you have your papers, all the papers are ready and everything, you selected, you have selected the journal, everything. Now you need to create something called mind map. Mind map is a very, very useful. The techniques I use all the time, and I really use it. I like it because it is very easy way to look at the big picture of your research work. It's hard because we do a lot of things. We have other responsibilities and all this, so we don't keep track all the time. But if you use MindJet Manager, it will create a map so that you can see, for example, this is the main topic, this is a subtopic, and in this subtopic there is some approach or techniques that is published. You are creating the roadmap for it. It will also help you to extract classification later, or taxonomy if you want, from this map. It's very simple. You can just see it, and it's a visual representation. You can just create this, and there are a lot of software tools you can make use of it. Some tools are commercial and some are free. Like for example, MindJet Manager it's a commercial, but it is very useful tools for mind map. There is one called free plan. I think free plan also, it is one of the tools that they use to create a map. Once you have this, create also a table summary. You see why you have to do this too, because later when you start writing, you don't have to create tables every time. You already have the summary of the tables. The summary, you will start it early before you start writing your manuscript. You create in an Excel sheet, or you can just use normal Word documents to write by columns. So the first column, let's say I want to extract the problem statement of the paper. The second, I want to extract the methodology and or method they have, and the evaluation matrix, the result, the future direction. So this is the table that we create. Later we can convert this table into comparisons between different studies, because we already know it's very short and precise. We just pick and just organize it in a way that shows there is a differences, comparisons, or summary of the particular studies that we want to summarize also. So this part is very important. You need to consider before you start. Okay, so now during your writing, always remember that you have to sell your article. Selling means think of the contribution. What are the things that I need to put in my paper so that people can really have an interest on it, reading it, cite it, and all the citation will not comes as you will not get a free citation unless you cite yourself or you ask someone to cite. If you want someone to cite, you have to offer something to that person. So you have to think of how to sell it, and the way to sell is look at the items in your survey and review paper. What are the contribution I have? One of the contribution I believe is you create a taxonomy or classification, because the designing of this classification or taxonomy, it's not always, it's not there. You will not see someone has done it the same way you did it. It's the way that you put some effort and extract it and you organize it. So please focus on this part and create the structure. So yeah, this is one of them, and this comes from the map. As I said, design a classification, taxonomy. Then you may have some other contributions. Later we'll discuss when we go into the template. Then you create a structure for your manuscript. It means the sections of your manuscript. So don't start the introduction, let's say for example, without knowing what will be the next. Always put all together, all the sections, and then you start, okay, today maybe I will only focus on the introduction. So you write about introductions. If you found out that there is something that can be used in other section, you already have the structure ready, you can just start writing somewhere else also, and so forth. So later you will finish. So this is how you write your sections. There is an online course I used at the time when I was writing my paper. The first time I started, I joined Stanford Online Scientific Writing course. It's a very helpful. I think you can join the course, and it helps you to see the view of how you can write scientific writing. This is, as I said, it's not about you are a perfect English writer, or you are perfect in speaking English, or it's about techniques. If you know the techniques, then you save a lot of time, and then you revise and rewrite some of the sections until you have mm, the whole sections that is written in a way that you feel it is presentable and it is good. Once you finish this, then you move into now submitting your paper to the manuscript. You need to convert your manuscript to the journal format. These mistakes, for those who just starting, especially master's students or PhD students, they don't follow the guidelines of the journal. So please follow the guidelines of the journal. Each and every journal has a page called author guides. So before you send your journal to your paper to the journal, please check the guideline and see what are the format that they are looking for. I saw many mistakes. Some students, they submit without checking. So later the editor will send back, and this is not a very good, you can say, it's not a very good way of letting editors always sending you back to check and add a few things. So make sure that you check the guidelines, you follow the guidelines. Commonly, the format is almost same in either you use Springer or Elsevier, but some journals, they have a very specific. Let's say if someone from the medical, there are a few things that they needed, the ethical consents and a few things, declarations. There are many things that they need it in your paper. You have to put it. If you did not put it, then they will return the paper again. You have to do it. So please check the guidelines and follow the guidelines of the paper. Proofread your paper. This is also very, very important. Either you use a professional service or you can use someone who is very good in English, you can check and proof your work. Proofread, even if you are 100% sure that this paper is well written and there is no mistake, no grammar error, nothing, zero. That because you yourself believe, but you don't know others whether they can figure out some mistakes or not. So please just give it to someone to proofread it. Write an effective cover letter. Cover letter is also very important. So what do we include in this cover letter? In the cover letter, we include, first we need to say that this manuscript is not submitted somewhere else. You need to declare that to the editor because it goes to the editor. The second part, try somehow to convince, if you can, convince the editor that your work is unique. You use, I mean, you write some a sentence that shows that this is unique, and the way to show, you highlight the contributions, your contributions, and shows that yes. I remember one of my paper published in one journal. I believe it is because of the cover letter that I have written. I convinced the editor that this paper will draw attention, because let me tell you something, journals looking for citations, if they know your paper can bring citations, they will accept it. The editor will decide on accepting the paper, even if it is not well written, will accept it. So that's how you play with this, means try to find a way to convince the editor that yes, this is a very nice work, even though you believe it is not, but you have to find a way to convince. Check references. References is very important. Be consistent. If you use APA or any other reference guide, you follow the same, and this is important. Also check and make sure you cite as much as possible, because the citations give some sort of credibility. You can see many papers published in high impact journal. When you look at the references, you can see they have a list of references, a lot of references. It's because for PhD, especially PhD and masters, they are not expert in that domain, so you cannot claim most of the things in your paper. You cannot say that this is my opinion. Definitely you got it somewhere else. So please try to cite as much as possible. You can see some papers has about 200 citations, uh, 100 plus or something. So please cite as much as possible. Any idea you feel that yes, this is somehow I got it from this paper, you try to cite. Okay, this is some of the writing skills tools that you can make use of it, especially for those who are new to writing. As I said, Scientific Online, it is Stanford Scientific Writing course is very useful. You can join the course and just learn how to write a scientific paper. There is a book also, Science Research Writing for Non-Native Speaker of English. This book, when I was doing my PhD, my supervisor has given to me, and it really helps me because they have an examples of each section that you need to write, each paragraph you have to write and how to write it. So all these things. So please check this book if you can and go through it. It's very, very useful. Try to keep perspective, and checking is important. Always check your work from time to time and receive feedback. Feedback is also very important, especially for non-experienced researcher. Send your paper. Nobody, I believe, can publish your work without your permission. So just give the person that you believe can give you a very constructive feedback, and get the feedback and try to improve it. My first paper, I almost got more than 10 feedback from different people, and each and every one of them was very useful to me. So get feedback, it's very important. Don't work on silo. These are some of the tools. Mindjet Manager, as I said, it's not a free, or it's a commercial. So if you don't want to buy this software, you can use a free plan. It's also for mind map, and there are a lot of tools out there, open source tools. You can use it. Either one of them will help you to draw this map. Zutara also, I use this for managing my content and managing references. It's also very important software you can use. It's open source. There is a collection of tools. I don't know if someone come across this. This is by Dr. Nadir from UM. He came up with mind map of all the tools that you need for your research. So you just go through it, spend some time. I put the link, I share the slides with you. You click the link and just view and see what are the things that can help you. It's just tools only, so you can use those tools. Uh, only 2 more slides, then we go to the, the the templates. These are some important tips how to manage your content. Set a task targets. So means each part of your work, let's say section 1, introduction, how long will take, and what are the tools or resources that I need to write and finish this part. Set that task. Make a maximum use of resources. So you have many tools, either map, mind map, manager tools, or journal, paper, resources. All these resources, you use them as much as possible. Use EndNote or use Mendeley or any reference manager that can help you also to organize. So maximize resources. It's very important. Get your material reviewed by peers and make contact with people in the same field. So if you know someone who is working on the same area that you are working on, try to contact the person and have collaboration or have some discussion with the person. Have a regular weekly schedule for writing. This is especially for lecturers, because we always busy. We don't have that much time to really focus and write. So please just make a schedule, maybe 2 hours a week, or maybe 3 hours or 4 hours. It depends on the schedule. But keep writing every week, because if you say, okay, I don't have time this week, I definitely will not have time next week also. So try always to have the schedule and stick to your schedule. It's very, very important. Managing yourself also is one of the important. This is about commitment, because writing review paper, you have to write about 25 pages, and it's really hard work. It's not an easy task. So try also to discipline yourself and manage yourself in a way that you can finish your paper as much as possible, as soon as possible, sorry. So estimate how long each task will take, as I said, because you have sections. Each section you have to complete it within the time frame. Try to have that already set in your calendar. Use planning tools to establish important sequence of your work. Let's say this month I want to write introduction, I want to complete a taxonomy. So you need to put that in sequence. And then the following months, what are the things you have to do? You need to start and honestly, one of the things I learned during the time when I was doing my PhD was the techniques that Prof. Abdullah was used. Prof. Abdullah was my principal investigator, and he is very much concerned with the timing. When he asks you to do something, he wants you to deliver on that time frame, and that really helps me, because you will push yourself. You know that you have to finish it within this time frame. So if you have students, you can ask them to give a time frame for the paper that they want to write, and not only just a general time frame that I want to finish in 3 months, without giving you the breakdown details of how are they going to finish it in 3 months or 4 months. They need to give that details. It's very useful. Write down everything you can, and that will help you. Instead of you keep most of the things in your memory to remember and spend too much time on estimate is very important. If you are not estimating, you will not know how long will take you. It can take years just to write a review paper. So try to estimate how long it takes, and schedule your writings accordingly. Okay, so this is basically just a general overview of what is a review and how you can consider some of the aspects that can help you to write a review or survey paper. Okay. I don't know whether we leave the questions at the end, or if you have any questions regarding these slides, you can ask me questions. Then we move to the template, and we go through the templates. And I hope that templates can also be useful to all of you. So I will open a floor. If you have any questions, please, you can ask. Okay. If no questions, then let me move to the templates. Sorry, I did. Okay, let's move to the template, and then we can leave the questions at the end of the presentation. Okay, this is a common examples of review papers that you can see in many journals. So these are the things, techniques that I use to write a review paper. So I just came up with a template. You can use this template in your next paper, or if you are writing the paper now, you can also take some of the tips that can help you to adjust your paper. As I said, the first thing is the title. Means we need to set the title. Okay, when we set the title, we need to indicate accurately the subject and the scope of the study. I put this example so that you can see how accurate it is. The rise of big data on cloud computing. It's very clear and easy to understand and figure out exactly what this paper is all about and the scope of the paper. Try to avoid abbreviation and use the words that create a positive impression. One of the common mistakes of setting a title is when you search, the most common one you use, and that's not a good idea. Don't use the same or similar ways everyone is using. Try to be a bit innovative in a way that you create a title that is not very common. It's just like you put yourself in 10% or 20%. If 80% of the people use the same way, let's say I could say big data review, that's it, or a review of the big data, and that's it. This is a very general and very common. You can see many papers on this, so it is not really attractive and doesn't shows that this paper has a positive impression, or giving at least a positive impression. So I use this term, the rise of big data on cloud computing. The term the rise is somehow attractive. And the second example also, the rule of big data. If the time when I was writing this title, the rise of big data, there are no many rise of something. It's a very few. So not in even computer science field. I believe this is the first in computer science. Maybe some they have, I didn't see it, but I didn't check that there is a term, the rise of something in. So please try to be a bit innovative, and it would be good if you can indicate this is either review or survey. So the next, you need to indicate a review, and you can be more specific. The reason why you can be more specific is also to draw attention. When you say open research issues or future direction, for example, or open research challenges, you draw attention to the reader, especially those who want to get into research. They don't know where to start. When they see your paper and they see, okay, this paper has open research issues or open research challenge, let me get in and read this paper. So they will download your paper and they will start reading the paper. So try to be specific, and it really helps, but not too many. Not to, let's say a review and let's say classification, and then you say use cases, case studies, research. Just something that can just catch the reader's attention. And most of the time, research issues, research challenges, future directions draw readers' attention, because that's what we are looking for. Everyone is starting research will start looking for issues or challenges. So please use this way. It's very effective and very useful. Then this is obvious for most of you. You will have your names, name of the authors. If you have a correspondent author, one of you correspondent author, you indicate that in your names by having a star at the beginning or at the end. So you list down all, and the order of the names shows the order of contributions. Order of contributions. So try to arrange them accordingly. Then you have the emails address, and then the affiliation of the university. Okay, okay, there is something also you need to, it's just a techniques that you need to, when you write, especially in computer science or any other field, when you write, please try to merge two different ideas that is not exist. It's not there, but when you merge two ideas, it bring more attention. Let's say big data and cloud computing, two different uh, ideas. You bring them together. Big data, smart city, IoT, security, for example. Try to have these combinations, because it is not, and you have to figure out the relation between these two. So that can also help, especially those who are experienced editors. When they see these kind of combinations, they will be more happy to forward your paper to the reviewers. So try to always have this combination and go with a trend. Go with a trend means see what other people are doing right now and what they will do in the next maybe 10 to 15 years, and do it based on that. Don't do a paper that is already people have worked on it for the last 10 years. It will not draw attention of the readers. So just go with the trend. It's very important. In abstract, and this is what I normally consider as a common sense for the reviewers. Those who review your paper, they have something in mind when they look at your paper. They just want to see the elements of your abstract, whether what they have in mind is there or not. And we can make these mistakes sometimes because we be overconfident, or we don't know how to organize our sentence or flow the ideas in abstract. So try to follow this. This is just for me as a guideline. I always have this in my paper. I just follow this way. Try to limit your your abstract to 300 words. Some journals, they have a limit. Some journal they don't have, but the recommended one is around 300. So you don't fall under the mistake of having too many things in your abstract that doesn't really make sense. Try to make it precise, short. 300, I think it is recommended, and it is very effective. So the first sentence introduce the main topic of your survey or review. Let's say you have big data, cloud computing. You start with big data, and then followed by cloud computing, just only one sentence. and you have to have that transition between these two sentences. The second part is approximately maybe one or two sentence focus on motivation. Motivation is very important. The survey, why this is you are writing is very important. This is where you catch the reader's attention. Sometimes you can check reports, let's say from McKinsey or any reporters. You can get the statistics. They will tell you that in the next, let's say, 10 years, this is what will happen, all these things. So you put that one here. Or if you know that it is well-known issues that is going to be raised in the next few years, you can also highlight this. So this is sort of motivation that can attract the reader's attention, and it gives also a very positive impression of your work. Then followed by a problem. If it is required, sometimes survey review paper don't need to highlight the problem of your survey or review paper. So it is not very significant. As long as you have the motivation, is good enough. But sometimes you can highlight there is a concern, for example, that there is a lack of survey review paper in this particular domain or something like this. You can highlight this, and it is also very good. And then contribution of your work. So please don't underestimate your work. Whatever you feel it is a contribution, try to highlight it. Highlight as much as possible that this is the contribution. You have taxonomy, you have use cases, you have case studies, you have maybe a problem, challenges, you have the applications of that particular domain. Whatever you have, you just highlight them all in order. In order means you already have the sections, you go by the order, you list them down, all the contributions. And the last one is the significance of your paper. This significance is different from the motivation. Motivation is about why this is important. Significant is what impact this paper to the audience. So it is important. Let's say you can say that this review paper can serve as a guideline for those who are new to the research, who have no idea where to start. You can highlight this is significant, and you can find some other reasons, but the significant is to really show that what after writing this review paper to the audience, what the take out of this. So it's just like the outcome of your review paper. You can highlight at the last sentence. So this is abstract, and I believe if you check many papers who publish in high quality journal, they have this same or somehow similar ethics or similar ways of writing it, and the flow of organizing the sentence. So it is very structured and a logical way of organizing your writing, because sometimes, especially for the students, they mix. Sometimes they put contribution at the beginning, they put motivation at the end, and they don't introduce the topic properly at the beginning and so forth. So please try to make sure that these elements are organized in a way that someone can just move from one to one in a very effective way. Okay, the keywords we have at the bottom here, it is not part of the paper. Means the reviewers don't really look at the keywords. Doesn't give an impact on your paper, but the keywords here used for the search. When your paper publish, people can search for your paper, because you need citation, right? You need someone to download and read your work. So please find also a very effective and very common keywords that you use in your paper and put it there. You can limit them between maybe 5 to 6. Some journals, they have limit. You can put, or maybe 4, for example. But 5 to 6 is it's a very good one. So let's say I have big data, I have cloud computing, I can include analytics, I can include storage, I can include security, for example, because it's part of the discussion that I have in my paper. So this is the keywords. So these keywords is just for the search, and it doesn't give an impact on your work. And so don't really have that much time on this. You can just do it at the end of the paper. Now, the introduction is just also a short version of the paper. Let's say abstract is the short, and the juice of your paper is a short version of your paper. Introduction also, it is the same, but in somehow more details compared to abstract. So when you come to introduction, you follow the same, but in somehow more details. So the first paragraph, so because in introduction, because you need to write more, you organize them by paragraph. The first paragraph, the second paragraph, you can introduce the topics. And please cite as many as possible if you can. Also try to select the precise words that describe the topic accurately and indicates to your audience things that which you want to focus on. Let's say here the example of the continuous increase in the volume and details of data captured by organizations such as rise of social media, Internet of Things has produced an overwhelming. You can see it trigger the mind of the reader that, okay, he's talking about big data. He's talking about huge amount of data and so forth. So this kind of thing. Here the paradigm shift from this is the introduction to your introduction. The first catchy sentence that you need to put in the beginning so that the reader can have attention. And the common mistake we have sometimes when we write paragraphs, let's say I have two topics, two ideas, big data and cloud computing. The common mistake sometimes, we don't know which one we start with. And the second, we mix between them. If you start mixing, then the reader will get confused. If you don't know which one you will start, also it will impact your paper, because people will say, okay, he is talking about cloud computing, but the whole thing is about big data. So please find the main idea of your title. The main idea here is the big data, not cloud computing, but we are just looking at the big data from cloud computing perspective. So you start with big data, and at the end of your paragraph, before the last sentence, before you go to the next paragraph, please try to have a signal term. That signal term is a transition from one paragraph to the next paragraph. So you are transitioning your paragraph. So when the reader read your first paragraph, when it comes to cloud computing, because sometimes they don't know what is cloud computing, you need to transition them to the next sentence, to the next paragraph. When they come to next paragraph, they'll say, oh, okay, this is cloud computing, and we'll continue reading your paper until the end of the paper. So this is how you flow the writing of this paragraph. And then the second part of your introduction, as I said, motivation, but in details. You can have some citations from high impact papers. You give some motivations here. Also, it's about one or two paragraph, or one paragraph is enough, I think. Then in part 3, please try to have related work. It's just a one paragraph at, before motivation. This related work, you can show how your survey paper is different from the existing survey papers. You are writing a survey or review paper that people have already written about. And if you send it without having this part, some reviewers may check. And if they found out that there are some survey review papers similar to yours, they will reject it definitely. They will say that it's already published, so why you are writing here? So to avoid having this rejection here, try to show the differences between your survey paper and others, or your review paper and others' review papers. So for example, you can say possibly the most relevant related work appeared in, you highlight that paper. Be very honest. Don't hide your, because definitely they check. If it goes to someone who is experienced in that domain, will already will know immediately, oh, this one is already been done before. So be very honest when you put that work, even if it's very comprehensive, still you put it and put some others if exist, but limit to the recent one. The recent maybe the last 4 example if it is exist. And then you say, however, our studies differ from that previous one. And now here you is precisely highlight some of the things that you have that that paper doesn't have. Here the reviewer will not go and check. You already highlight, so will, even though you, if it goes to, if they check the other paper, maybe it's more comprehensive, something like this. This will save some time and it gives some sort of reliability that yes, this one is good, and they will just continue reading. And then also in your introduction, you need to highlight, we have in abstract, here also you need to highlight and clearly highlight all the contribution, but you can be more specific here in this part because it's a paragraph. You can write paragraph. Let's say you have a classification, you can go in more details about your classification. You can highlight all the categories of your classification, for example, and so forth. So you can start with the goal of these studies, so you can follow, and then you just continue writing all the contributions that you have in big details here. You can have one paragraph, which is the last paragraph, is the outline of the paper. This is also a very important one. Please don't ignore it. You need to highlight the sections of your paper. Section 1, for example, introduction of the paper. Section 2, present a background. Section 3, discuss a taxonomy. Section 4, like this. So until the whole sections that you have. So please also don't ignore this part. It's very important. And don't ignore the contribution part, also very important. And don't ignore this, because let me tell you something. Most of the reviewers, they only read your abstract and introduction, and if they find out that it is good enough, well presented, they will have a positive impression about your paper. So they will not have that negativity of your work. If they have that negativity, they will just look for the reason to reject only. But if they got that positive impression from the beginning, then you will be safe. Then they will not look for the negativity. They will just say, okay, let me give this person major revision. So they will just quickly check and see, okay, you need to do this. English is not, something like this. It's very common. Some of them, they even have a template. They just copy paste and send. So so focus on this part. The other thing you need to also consider, because sometimes they just scroll down. They don't read it. They scroll the abstract, maybe introduction, but the rest they will just scroll. Try to have a very nice graph when you have in your paper. Design it in a way that draw. This is one of the things also. So go into the next section. Let's say, for example, on a taxonomy in the next section. Some of the papers, they have background, and I don't advise to have background because it is too much information that is not really part of your contribution of your work. It's just extra effort that you put. But if you do, it's fine. You can write, but it's not very, especially if the topic is a mature topic. Please don't have that background writing a lot about what is big data, all this stuff about cloud computing. People already know about it. Just go to the next section, which is the classification or taxonomy. So as I said, this is the heart of your paper. security. Can write down here in the box, you highlight the most popular one and recent one. You can just put them. You can discuss some of the recent machine learning techniques. For example, you are summarizing them. You can put them in a category and then you just list them down. So please always think of this as the horizontal or vertical. You have to be very consistent and look at the similarities between each boxes. It's not just a randomly you throw items in here. You make sure that you have the well organized this. Let's say I have this, the title is a big data, for example. I know big data is a very broad, right? I cannot write about it. I mean, it's difficult because there are many aspects that I need to consider. So I can break them down into, let's say, security is one aspect, storage is one aspect, analytics is one aspect, and maybe the data source is one aspect, and some other things I can consider. So this is how you can arrange them. So under security, you can have, let's say, privacy, you can have ethics, for example, and some other things, that regulation, for example, or whatever. In analytics, you can consider some of the recent machine learning techniques, for example, for big data, let's say deep learning or something, and so forth. But if you are discussing a specific topic, try to be more specific. If you are if you are discussing a general topic, try to be more specific, not to have a very general terms that is really very obvious to people. So this is the taxonomy that you need to create. So now once you finish this taxonomy, as I said, this taxonomy is all from the map that you create. You don't have to think of it. Don't use your imagination, because later you will not find papers that is talking about it. So you will again have to revise and all this. So you don't think of it. Go back to your map and extract it from there and just put it in your taxonomy or classification. So once you finish them, at the bottom, this is 2, right? 2.1 is your subsection. Now you go into each and every part and discuss it. Here you can present some summaries, tables, or comparison, because you specifically group them. So when you discuss them, you have the focus now. You can easily discuss, let's say, all the machine learning techniques. I can easily summarize and compare between them. All the, let's say, data sources, I can easily also discuss and compare between them, and so forth. So please try to have this subsection. So for each parties, you have subsection, and at the end of each subsection, you have tables, you have this summary, or you have the comparisons. So until you finish. So if you are starting a new paper, please start with this part first, because the heavy work is here. The much work you have to do is in this part, the classification part. Then later you can go to other sections. Then you can have a case study also as part of your paper. It is sometimes recommended. And this case studies, in my first paper, I did not include it when I sent to the journal. When I sent to the journal, this is the only comment that I received. The journal asked me to include case studies. So case studies is a real world examples of the use of that particular technology or that particular ideas. So try to include this, either industry-based case studies or maybe academic-based case studies. Try to include it. It is very, very important also. So you can list between maybe 5 to 6 cases studies, and you down about case studies. If you are discussing deep learning, there are so many case studies. If you are discussing, let's say, cloud computing, there are many case studies. Big data, any case studies. Every field has, they have the case studies, the real world use of that application. So what are the elements that you can include in your case study? You can just look at what is the case study is all about, what was the problem that they are trying to solve, and what is the solution that they offer, and what is the result that they get. So you can see a similar way, like scientific paper, but this is more on the case study, the issue that they work. Let's say a company, let's say TM, got some issues with their server, and they use certain technologies, for example, to solve their problem, and the result that they have achieved, for example. So those kind of things that you can include in your case study. You just organize it on that way. You can include also use cases, but if you have case studies, you don't need use cases, so you can use either one of them. This is very common, especially in social science and all this. They use cases. You can have it in this case studies. Also in other fields, they also use it, but most commonly in science kind of studies, they use case studies. So you can add one of them, or you can even drop both of them, because it's just optional, but it is very good if you have. Then you have a research challenge. A research challenge is also very, very important. It is one of the contribution that you have in your research. Research challenge is always extracted from the existing studies. Normally, most of the studies, they highlight some of the limitations that they have in their studies. So please try to have it in your table. The beginning, when you are writing, you set the table, and in the table you have a column called, let's say, challenges or future direction or whatever. So you extract that challenges from here. The way you write, you can synthesize them. Let's say there are 3 to 4 studies. They highlight a similar concern or similar limitations to a particular approach or particular methods. Try to somehow summarize them or write them that this is the overall, this is the conclusion. So it's just like the finding of your paper. This is what we found, and you can just summarize them here. So you can have like maybe 5 to 6 or 7 different challenges, and try to be very specific here. Be very, very specific on the topics. Don't use a general topics. Let's say privacy. Privacy, unless the topic is very, very new. If it's mature, don't use a very obvious one. Let's say privacy. Everyone knows that privacy is a very general term. It's not a challenge that you need to focus on. So be very, very specific. Let's say there is an issue with execution time, for example, to some applications, or issue with throughput, or issue with so those are very, very specific things you can highlight. Optimization issues, those kind of things you can highlight as a challenge. In open research issues, challenges is always very specific. Let's say you have a technique. Your technique is fine, it's working, but the issue with this technique is the time it takes to complete, for example, that task. So there is some issues with the execution times or this. Although it's working, but there is some challenges in terms of these. So you can highlight in a research challenge. But open research issues is somehow it's a real problem on that field. You can highlight them. So it's somehow a bit different from the challenges. Let's say analytics in unstructured data. It is an issue. You can write down here, and you highlight all the issues that is has to do with this part and so forth. So you can also have some open issues. This is just like future direction. Open issues and future direction is somehow similar term you can use. So you have research challenges, then you have the open research challenges. It's all about future. What are the things that people have to work on it in the future on that particular area? And then at the last, you have your conclusion. So the conclusion is just to somehow wrap up whatever you have discussed and write it down. It's not like a abstract somehow, but rather it is a summary of your finding. Sometimes it looks somehow similar to contribution, means you highlight them, but try to show in a way that this is what I have found as a whole. So these are the things that you need to consider. And some they add discussion. If you have, you can add discussions on all this, but try to be precise and uh, and clear as much as possible with your flow of your sections, so that doesn't confuse the readers or the editors. So as I said, based on my personal experience, I start with taxonomy. I draw the maps, and then I fill all the boxes with the categories, and then I start writing all the sections. Once I complete this part, then I move into sometimes I just move into the introduction because I know exactly what to write here. And sometimes I just move into the next sections until complete them, then I move to the introduction. Sometimes while you are writing, you can also write some part in introduction. Let's say you come across some interesting ideas that you want to put in introduction, you can write in introduction. So in parallel, sometimes you can also work on your paper in different sections. It depends on the contents that you find. So so this is a brief what you call overview of what to expect in your paper and what are the things that you should not include, like you add too many contents without having a proper flow or needs of that sections in your paper. Try to make it as short as possible, precise as possible. For the review, because you need in-depth, focus more on this part. So you can include some diagrams, you can include some tables and so forth. In introduction, sometimes there is a diagram. Authors, they put as a motivation to show an overview, like a landscape or the map of your topic, a relationship, let's say, between big data, cloud computing. You can draw some figure that shows the connections between these ideas. So you can have that in your introduction, and you can refer to that as part of the motivation or part of the introduction, the first part. So you can draw one figure, and this figure it's a nicely look, and it shows that the connection between these two ideas, how these two ideas are related, and it really helps a lot in having that kind of having those kind of diagram in your paper. So don't include too many diagrams. Try to limit them. Limit your diagrams to maybe 4 to 5 if you can, and try to add tables at the end of each section of your taxonomy, each part. When you discuss it, try to somehow provide some summaries of it. The parameters of your table, you can decide based on the section that you are discussing. Some sections you may need to include some more parameters to compare and contrast between them. And some you don't have to, just go by advantage and disadvantage of these two different ideas and so forth. So I hope this is very useful to you. And let's take some questions if we have. Oh, okay. So one of you asking about the correspondent authors. Generally, most of the journals have limit number of correspondent authors. Some they don't. Some journals they ask only correspondent or two correspondents. The common one is two correspondence, and the can be correspondent. Your authors can be correspondent. So some journals, as I said, two journals also not give try to limit the number of we have your supervisor is a correspondent author. So you can have your supervisor as a correspondent author, and you can be the first author, something like this. Okay, so if I target certain journals and write up on the line of journal, if it is can accept it, the final. Okay, this is also because most of the journals, they have some how similar scopes. I believe not only one journal has only that scope. Many journals, let's say big data, many journals, they accept big data journals. But when you pick one or two journal, you know which journal you are targeting. You have that focus instead of later you think, because later when you think, it may take some time for you to figure out, okay, this journal is suitable for my paper. So please try to select a journal in the beginning, and don't worry, your paper will not be thrown in the garbage. You will publish your paper because you are writing within the domain, either computer science or social science domain. So definitely you will get a journal that will accept your paper. But you select is selection is a good if you can. Okay. Any other question? From your experience, how long does it take from submitting to the final publication? Okay. When it comes to timing, it's really hard to give a specific time. But if you really follow the guidelines, if you come up with a proper, uh, you can say proper uh, timeline, you can finish in maybe 3 months, 3 to 4 months. It depends, but not more than that. For the students, it shouldn't take that long. Means then this is the first draft. Then you can revise and revise. Maybe 5 months time you will have your paper complete, especially review, because it's a bit comprehensive. So for myself, the beginning when I started, it takes longer, but then gradually, since I start learning all these things, it reduces the amount of time that I spend. And if you, for the lecturers, try to collaborate. Try to collaborate as much as possible, because when you collaborate, you divide the task among yourself, and that also can reduce the timing. So instead of 4 months, it can go down to 2 months, or maybe even 1 month, depends on the number of the authors that you have. So collaboration is very important. Someone will take in charge and divide the task among each and every member of the paper, and each one has to do some part, and then one of the author should coordinate and put them all together, and then submit the paper to the journal. So one of my review took 16 months for reviewing and publishing. Yeah, this is also one of the unfortunate things that we have to go through sometimes. If you are not lucky, you send your paper and it take long time. So my advice, if your paper goes more than 2 months, try to communicate with the editor. Don't just keep quiet and feel afraid that if you email the editor will reject the paper. It doesn't matter whether the editor will reject or accept the paper. You need to communicate with the editor and tell the editor, this is the time that I have submitted, and up until now I haven't received, or the status has not changed, it's still under review, so please can you update me on this. So please try to communicate with the editor and don't feel afraid that the paper will be rejected, because sometimes you wait for 9 months or even more, which is not really something that anyone wants to wait. So please, if you feel that the journal does not want to respond at all, drop your paper. It is fine to withdraw your paper and submit to other journal. So you cannot wait that long. For technical paper sometimes take that much long, but review paper should not take that much long. A maximum 3 months, I think, or 4 months, I think should be acceptable. But more than that, there are many papers. Maybe someone will publish the similar work that or a similar survey or review paper that you have wrote. So it doesn't give any value later. That's why don't spend too much time. Yeah, one of you has highlighted this is also because it has it takes they have the long queue. So when you communicate with the editor, the editor will inform you about these issues, that we have many papers and all. So at least uh, you will be informed, and you can take the next step. If you feel that it takes longer, you can just ask the editor to withdraw and submit somewhere else, but don't wait long. If I no, okay, if I do the design classification, how do I justify my design classification is credible? Okay, this classification taxonomy, you don't have to justify that it's credible or not. It's just because this comes from the existing literature, and when you write down, because you have the sections, in each sections you have to back your claim of each and every category by the paper that you have reviewed. So it's not you just design a taxonomy and you just summarize it in general that this is the taxonomy that I have created. You have to in depth discuss and prove that each and every part is already covered in the literature. That's how you justify it, and that's good enough. So you don't have to justify that this is the gram, this, and when you have, let's say, a security part, you discuss in details each and every paper that has covered this part, all the techniques that they have proposed or methods that they have proposed on this part. So when you have this, it is good enough. And later at the bottom, you will have the comparisons of that category. And I think it is good enough. Yeah, it is based on collected papers that you read. It is not, as I said, it's not by imagination. You don't imagine and just put the categories. Later, you will have the problem to justify why this is there. So you look at the papers, and then you just design your maps, and then from there you extract your taxonomy. So that's I think because it's yours, the one you have created, so you don't have to compare with some other taxonomy or someone else to justify. It's just that whatever you have discussed should reflect your taxonomy. Okay, so any more questions? So please don't forget the 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 importance of cover letter, please, when you submit your paper. It's a very effective way of convincing the editor. And look at the, as I said, white papers, reports from industries, or the recent studies published in high impact journal, and form your title based on that. If you write a review or survey paper on the topic that is already mature, it is very hard to get your paper accepted because it doesn't really draw much attention, and that's what journals are not looking for. They look for the example. Why I'm saying this is my paper, the first one. I have no idea that this paper is even accepted. I sent it in 22 days. The editor himself recommended that paper to be accepted. So it is, even the editor himself recommended that this paper should be accepted, and they accepted. The total amount of time it took for this paper to be published is only less than 2 months. It's just about 1 month from the time I received the revision to the time that the paper has accepted. So this shows that when you go with a trend, something that is very, very recent, the journal will accept your paper because they need that paper to draw the citation. I don't know how the editor managed to see it, but the paper that they accepted almost got 2,000 citation, and I don't know how much number of download, but there is a lot of download over the world. So so try to be very precise, creative in your title, and also try to use some catchy terms that is describing your title. Okay, any more questions? Okay, is there any linkage required to set between the abstract, introduction, conclusion, or focus on? No, this is no need. In your abstract, you don't have to have linkage between introduction. It's just sentence after the sentence, the first sentence, the second sentence, and so forth. So you don't have to have that connection. Only in introduction, when you write the paragraph, when you have ideas, you want to shift from one ideas to another ideas, you can have that link. Or when you write your taxonomy, also the flow of your writing, you can move. But in abstract, you don't have to have that linkage between different. You can have introduction of your topic, then you can highlight motivation, then you have your contribution, then you have your significance. So you don't have to have the connection, the linkage between, but because you are discussing the same topic, which is your title, so you are not going out of the scope of your title to write about something different. So it is fine to have it. Yeah, thank you very much. And I hope this is very useful to all the participants, especially the youngsters, those who are starting a new program, master's or PhD. And I hope I can provide more in recent or maybe in coming months. There is one more talk also will come recently, but this one is on machine learning. And artificial intelligence. So you good to join also if you would like to join the talk. Yeah,